however, remains very interested in receiving public input on the topics we discuss. Therefore, we encourage citizens to provide comments to the board via email. Alternatively, citizens may send written comments to the board through the U.S. mail. In light of the adjustments being made due to the pandemic, agenda items are being condensed to include only those items that require board action at this time. We anticipate that there may be some adjustment period for each of us and staff as we acclimate ourselves to the technology in the virtual meeting setting. We ask for your understanding and patience as we work through this process. For board members and staff who are participating in the virtual meeting, I would remind us all to silence our cell phones and other devices around us that the microphones may pick up. Also, we should each silence our microphones when we are not speaking. Now, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. So the first item will be calling for the motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Board members, any comments or revisions requested to the agenda? Okay, board members, I would like to bring up one potential item where we do want to talk about public participation possibilities. We have not actually received any public feedback comments that were requested to be presented at tonight's meeting. So I would suggest that we use that time slot that we normally have public participation to discuss potential options on how we would do public participation during this virtual meeting setup. Does anyone have, I would make a motion to make that change to the agenda.
So moved.
Okay. So Kenny will make the motion. Seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Seconded by Dr. Dorsey. So board members, any other comments or questions about that potential item?
No.
No? Okay. Any other revisions that we'd like to see to the agenda for this evening? No? Okay. Then with that, I will call for the vote on the approval of the agenda as amended. All those in favor, if I can get a verbal aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So moving on to the next item, we will move to the approval of the minutes. So board members, I need a motion to approve the unapproved board meeting minutes from March 11th, 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyler. Okay, board members, any comments or questions on the March 11th minutes?
Okay, I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm trying to find my page. Okay, yes, it's on page 5. It's concerning the comments concerning my board activities. So it's the bottom paragraph on page 5. And I'm looking at the sentence about midway through that paragraph. She attended mock trial county championship. Okay, so again, I did attend the mock trial county championship, and it was held at the Carroll County Circuit Court. And this is where Westminster High School and Liberty High School competed. So I'm just making the addition that it was actually held at the Carroll County Circuit Court with the Westminster High and Liberty High School students competing.
Okay. Dr. Dorsey, did you have any other comments?
No, I think I'm okay. Again, it looked like the text in some places it's sort of going together some of the words are going together, but I think, we can adjust that. It seems like there was one where we were talking about the county commissioners. There's a sentence that I'd like to get to concerning that, and I'm sorry.
Oh, I think I know what comment you're referring to, Dr.
Yeah,
Dorsey, and I think it's
not
on the
a
next
complete
set of minutes.
sentence. Yeah.
I think it might be on the April 1st minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 'cause no wonder I can't find it on this one. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, because I think I remember that exact situation.
Right.
Okay.
So for this one, then I guess that's the only one on page 5, that bottom paragraph.
Okay, great. Other board members, any additional comments? I would just like to make a couple of comments, just that, this board meeting was the day before everything really started breaking out with the coronavirus. So I think the minutes accurately reflect what we discussed at that meeting, but a lot of things changed very shortly after that meeting, and I think we'll be providing a lot of updates in the later sections tonight that will address some of those issues. So with that then, board members, I will call for the vote on the March 11th minutes as amended. All those in favor, if I can get a verbal aye.
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 And all those opposed? So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now I need a motion for the approval of the unapproved board meeting minutes for April 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Okay, board members, any comments?
I do have a couple on this one. Okay, on the first page, we just need to look at that last sentence. The board meeting today will be, instead of to answer, have a question and answer period. Just to say the board meeting today will be a question and answer period. On the
Okay, so just cross out to answer have.
Right. So we wanted to have a question and answer period. So we have to cross out those words to answer
Right.
have. Okay, and here's my sentence on page, no, now it's not numbered, but the last page, beginning with Board of County Commissioners. The sentence really begins on the previous page. It's just the beginning, the Board of County Commissioners. So if we can cross they are or they out, I think that will do it, instead of having that separate sentence. So it's the Board of County Commissioners are waiting to see what happens.
Right. I think that's a good way to handle it. Just cross out the they and have that continue on.
Right.
Okay. Dr. Dorsey, did you have any other comments on this set of minutes?
No, I didn't.
Other board members?
No.
No.
No? Okay, I did have one additional change on page 4. It's the first paragraph at the top of page 4, where it says we have enough dollars until the end of the year with some dollars remaining. This was in response to whether we thought that we would exceed our budget and would need to do a fund balance transfer. I think that we should say we have enough dollars until the end of the year with some dollars remaining, given the savings from not having to run the school buildings for the last several weeks of the year. So, I mean, it's because we expect to have savings from utilities and things like that was the discussion, that's what is causing us to expect not to go over the budget by any appreciable amount for the year. So is that okay if we just add, given the savings from not having to run the school buildings, to that sentence?
Okay, so read the complete sentence now, Donna.
So we would have enough dollars until the end of the year with some dollars remaining, comma, given the savings from not having to run the school buildings during the closures.
Okay.
right, board members, any other items for today's minutes? Okay, then I will call for the vote on the approval of the minutes from April 1st as amended. All those in favor, if I could get a verbal aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we will move on to section 2, which is public participation. And based on how we voted to amend the agenda earlier, I would like to ask Dr. Lockard to kind of outline the situation and some suggestions that you had for public participation for future virtual board meetings.
Sure. Thank you, President Savigny. Good evening, everybody. As Ms. Savigny said at the beginning of the meeting, we did not receive, to our knowledge, any public comment for agenda items for tonight's board meeting. We still want people to submit that, and I'm looking for ways in which we might be able to share any public comments for board meetings. In a typical setting, people would come in and speak. It's broadcast, it's videoed, it's archived. In this case, I'm looking for a way that if folks want to see what public comment is submitted, that they could be able to see that for each board meeting. And one recommendation for the board to consider, and I'm certainly open to others, but one to consider would be for each email that we receive, or written, because people can still put it in the mail, written for public comment for a board agenda item for a board meeting, just as if they were coming to speak to us. For each one we'd receive, we'd post that on our website with a easily identifiable spot for each board meeting. I could work with Ms. Gaddis and set that up so that if I want to see, hey, what public comment was received for this board meeting, I could just go to the website and pull up each of the emails or letters received. So that was one idea for trying to continue to make that public comment accessible to those who are interested in seeing it.
Would it make any sense to have Ms. Gaddis or someone else read that feedback, or we would just post it as an email or in a format that folks could access on the website?
So your suggestion is during the public participation time, any that we get, we just read aloud?
I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility, if folks would be interested in hearing that, like if it made sense for us to actually address it during the virtual meetings, or if we would just make it available for folks to go look at.
All right. So that's sort of what the pleasure of the board is. I think those are two certainly viable options. We could read them during the meeting as written to us, and or we could post them for folks to see. Those are two options.
I think posting them would be good. Not necessarily having someone read them, just making sure they're posted so people can access to see them.
Okay. And do we want to think about employee groups as well? I mean, I know that we would want them to have the ability to post something if they had specific comments that they wanted the board to hear.
Yes, I think I would consider that under the same approach as the public participation piece. We afford our employee groups that same right to address us at our meetings. So I put them right in that same sort of category of participation, public participation at our board meetings.
Okay.
So we could do the same thing for them as well.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry. I think that all sounds good, and I think with the part of reading, when somebody takes the time to come to a meeting and abides by the rules for the 3 minutes and what they can and can't say, I think that's great. I think if somebody sends you something and says, I really would like this read at the meeting and blah, 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 maybe, but I think they should be posted, and that gives everybody an opportunity to see them. I think that's good transparency, I think.
Okay, and I thought maybe with Mr. O'Mealy, who's our legal counsel, Mr. O'Mealy, we talked about this in terms of meeting the legal requirement, any issues or additional input that you'd like to have on that.
Dr. Lockard, the issue with respect to posting the emails is consistent with the provisions of the Maryland Public Information Act. When the board receives emails, just as when the board receives letters, they do become public record. Of course, unless they contain personally identifiable student information, which we would redact before making available to others, the same would be true for personnel-related matters that are identifiable to an employee. But other than that, that is consistent with the law, and it's transparent, as board members have said, and is in keeping with the board's commitment to allowing members of the public to speak on agenda items and employee groups as well. So I don't see a problem with that.
Thank you, Mr. O'Mealy. And typically when we get to public comment, Ms. Herbert, as Vice President, would read a statement that sort of outlines what's acceptable for public comment. We would hold the public comment to that same standard. So no, as you said, Mr. O'Mealy, no personally identifiable with students, no personnel issues. Those would be handled differently. Perhaps I can work with Ms. Gaddis that we could even post that language on the website so that people could see as they consider submitting public comment.
Absolutely. The emails received and posted by the board would have to be consistent with the board's stated rules on what would be appropriate.
I feel that what I read every month should be posted so there wouldn't be any guess to what is appropriate and inappropriate, and follow those guidelines, and that's the way it should be for everyone.
That's a good point, Ms. Herbert, if we can make sure that we have those guidelines posted for folks to be aware of what is appropriate and not appropriate to provide as public comment.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some agreement there, and with the board's permission, I'll work with Ms. Gaddis over the course of the next couple of weeks to create that space on our website, and those would then be posted at the time of our meeting. Okay, obviously we're going to get them throughout, but typically they'd be posted at the time of our meeting, just like public comment is received at the time of our meeting, and then they're there, you know, for folks to refer back to or look up from you know, from the board meeting.
Board members, any other questions or comments? Okay, great. I think we have a good way forward with that, and thank you, Dr. Lockard. We will move on to section 3 now, which is board member and superintendent updates. Board members, I'll reach out to you for any comments about activities and correspondence, although I'm sure it's all been fairly limited in terms of activities outside of our house because everything has been canceled, but I know that we've all been involved in a lot of miscellaneous discussions and volunteer efforts, so I'll open it up. Mr. Kyler, I know you had something that you wanted to say, so would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you. Our last regular meeting was March 11th. By the end of that week, activities started to shut down due to the coronavirus. Throughout the next week, almost all activities were starting to be canceled. By the following week, everybody started to realize this would not be over quickly, and we started to adapt to virtual meetings. Many of us are working at home or in very empty offices. Unfortunately, also a good percentage of us aren't working. I was fortunate enough, I witnessed our food service personnel and a bunch of other Carroll County Public Schools staff volunteering at meal distribution sites. And it was so great to see them stepping up and doing extra work and greeting the families, and the little bit of time I got to be there, the families were very, very appreciative. And then on top of that, I want to compliment the superintendent and all of the Carroll County Public Schools staff. Much has happened since our last meeting, and I think very, very, very many of them have stepped up. I hear such positive stuff from students and their classrooms and videos from their teachers. I think it's, like all of you, I wish we didn't get this challenge, but I do compliment on everybody stepping up. And beyond seeing the food services stuff, I did virtual MAID meetings and BOE meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyler. That was well said. Other board members, comments that you'd like to make?
I would just like to comment that during the time of our school closures, I have touched base electronically with my ambassador schools. I've emailed the principals just to wish them well and to check in and to offer any support that I could offer for them. So again, it was great to reach out to them and to hear back from them. And again, they are pretty much sharing that they are adapting to this situation we find ourselves in, but really they can hardly wait to get back to business as usual and get in those schools with the children and the staff members. So it's just so different. The administrators have been involved in helping to distribute devices and computers to students who are in need of those. And in one of my schools, there were approximately 120 of those devices distributed to students and their families. They've also been involved in coordinating the pickup of the instruments, and at one of my middle schools there were 94 families who had to come in and pick up their instruments. And finally, the administrators have been involved certainly in supporting and encouraging their staff members, their students, and families. And I'm sure, they've been involved in a lot of activities to help keep everyone supported and encouraged. And all in all, they all agree that they are proud of their staffs for transitioning to the virtual learning environment, and also proud of the students and families who are working to continue learning. So again, some of the same comments that Mr. Kyler shared, as we're in this situation, it's just reassuring to know that folks are stepping up to the plate and doing what they can do to still support our students in their learning. And again, kudos to Dr. Lockhart and to all staff members who've had any involvement in making sure that children's learning continues.
Thanks, Dr. Dorsey.
Ms. Savigny, I just wanted to touch base with regarding some 4-H events that have been still happening behind the scenes. So I do want to congratulate all the 4-H students that were accepted into the ambassador program. Even though students are not having their 4-H meetings or FFA meetings, through emails, they're still able to send out their applications, do a lot of their virtual learning, whether it's for chickens or pigs or their cows and their sheep, just to prepare for fair. It's still scheduled for August, so we're still crossing our fingers for fair. But I did want to congratulate all the students who made it into the ambassador program. It's a real good achievement, and it builds their skills regarding leadership and helping younger kids. And guys, just all the students just continue working with your animal projects and getting stuff ready. Just cross our fingers to hope we still have our 4-H fair this year.
And Ms. Battaglia, I think I heard something about you reading some books online.
Yeah, I've on my Board of Ed Facebook page, I've been doing a couple live feeds where I read a book. I did yoga. We planted seeds. So just kind of like trying to stay interactive with the parents and the students that are home, just trying to keep things going. It is a tough time, but to me, that's a good way to kind of just keep things going for everybody.
Robert, did you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Yes, I have come out of retirement. I am teaching a 2nd grader and a 5th grader every day. I have a computer, and they bring their computer, and we do all our homework. Plus, Mrs. Herbert gives them extra. And I want to thank Dr. Lockhart and the whole staff for doing an outstanding job. And especially to all our educators, they have been they've been thrown into a new era, and that which we were not used to, and everyone has just been absolutely wonderful. Teachers communicate with the students with unbelievable timing, and I want to thank all of them. Because this is a new challenge, and I know this will definitely, as I stated before, this is going to be a new way to look at our snow days and see what else comes down the line. And our students, I think, are kind of excited about this virtual learning. But I will say one thing, that does not replace a teacher in front of the classroom because they have that touch. And I know my granddaughter would like to see her teachers and talk to them and ask a lot of questions. But I want to thank all the educators for doing all the extra that they've had to do and teach themselves because this is, as I said, this is a new era in Carroll County Public Schools. And I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart, and for all the people that are on the front lines fighting that coronavirus and putting their lives on the line too.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert, and I'd like to echo some of those comments. I've actually, my husband and I have turned into math and science teachers again in our spare time with our kids in middle school. That's been interesting. But I do want to thank the teachers. You know, we had made a statement about a week ago at the April 1st board meeting that, you know, we were moving down the path of our instructional technology plan, but it was something that we were planning to implement over the course of about 2 years. And instead, we basically pulled the trigger and implemented huge chunks of that in just short of 2 to 3 weeks' time. It's been a Herculean effort, and I'm just so impressed by staff and what they've been able to accomplish over that period of time. And I do know that the teachers are putting in significant amounts of extra time. They're logging in. They're spending almost an entire day on Sunday trying to get all the information out there for their students for the entire week so that it's there and ready for them waiting on Monday morning. And food services stepping up, IT stepping up. It's just we're hearing stories and you know, good news stories all over the place in terms of, you know, this was an amazing challenge that was put in front of us, but the staff are just rising to that challenge, and I'm so thankful and so impressed by what we've been able to accomplish. And Dr. Lockhart, I know that you're going to be giving a lot of updates on the COVID-19 response and situation, and we'll probably have a very robust conversation during your superintendent's report. So with that, I'll hand it over to you.
If I may, Ms. Savigny, I did want to see if Jackson, our student board member, who I believe is on this call, if he had any comments that he'd like to add from student perspective. Jackson, are you there?
Yes. We're just working through it right now, trying to figure out what we're doing with our classes and working with our teachers the best we can to try to get the information across right now.
Good. Well, we're glad to see you. And certainly wish you well, and thank you for participating with us tonight.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for being here tonight, Jackson, and sorry I forgot to shoot that over to you to get your comments.
No worries.
So just a bird's eye view from the students, how are you feeling the Google Classroom work and the packets of information that are coming home? Like, how's that working out?
I think a lot of teachers are actually taking it upon themselves to make sure everything is working very well. I think most students are checking the Google Classroom effectively, and I think most kids are checking in with their classes every day when they have classes, so I think it's working pretty well right now.
Thank you, Jackson. Well, Ms. Savigny, if I may, I'm gonna start with some great news for everybody, and that is about that's about our Outstanding Teacher Awards. This is about the time of the year when we're announcing that, and you know what? We had a big chunk of our year to celebrate while we were in school, and so we're going to do that. I'll give a little background. The Carroll County Chamber of Commerce has recognized over 560 teachers in the 31st Annual Outstanding Teacher Award Program. These awards recognize the educators in our school system who represent excellence in the teaching profession. As a little background, any parent, student, fellow teacher, supervisor, or school administrator can nominate an outstanding teacher. And Tonight, we're going to announce for the first time the names of our 8 Outstanding Teacher Award recipient finalists. So if had a little virtual drum roll, we'd hit it now. So here we go with the 8 Outstanding Teacher Award recipients. And these are in no particular order. Trisha Dean, congratulations, Trisha. Trisha is an English teacher from Liberty High School. Dawn Dill. Dawn is also an English teacher from Century High School. Congratulations, Dawn. Jenna Eamon. Jenna is reading specialist at Winfield Elementary School. Congratulations, Jenna. Next up, Cindy Freed. Cindy is a kindergarten teacher at Ebb Valley Elementary School. Denise Crestline. Denise is the life science teacher at North Carroll Middle. Congratulations. Next up, Lauren Latané Vallis. Lauren is an art teacher at Liberty High School. Congratulations, Lauren. Judy Plaskowitz is a science teacher at South Carroll High School. Congratulations, Judy. And rounding out the 8, Lauren Stevens. Lauren is a biology teacher at Manchester Valley High School. If you remember, the Carroll County Teacher of the Year will be chosen. One of these folks will be chosen from these 8 outstanding teachers. They're all winners in our book. And the candidate will be Carroll County's representative for the Maryland Teacher of the Year program. Each of these 8 finalists that I announced tonight will receive a $300 check from the Chamber of Commerce. So we want to, again, congratulate all 8 of those folks. The Chamber of Commerce, while we're talking about the Chamber, a great partner and support of Carroll County Public Schools, they also awarded the Wilhelm Scholarships to teachers to assist in their continuing education. So I'm going to congratulate 3 more folks, recipients of the Wilhelm Scholarships. They're going to receive a $300 scholarship from the Chamber as well. Emily Hockheiser, she's a business teacher at Westminster High School. Congratulations, Emily. Mike Campanile, masonry construction teacher at the Career and Technology Center. And the 3rd Wilhelm Scholarship to Teacher winner is Stacy Kaler, media specialist at West Middle School. We want to congratulate each of those Wilhelm Scholarship teachers. The members of the Board and Ed, the Board of Education and I would like to publicly thank the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this incredible program and providing the cash awards and scholarships totaling $3,300. The Outstanding Teacher Award program would not be possible without the generosity of the Chamber as well as our sponsors, and I'm just going to take a minute to recognize our sponsors, our premier sponsors, Tevis Energy, Penguin Random House, Comcast, BGE, Cone Creative, and Gage Digital Media. Our corporate sponsors, Carroll Community College, Carroll Occupational Health, Max Realty, Terry's Tag and Title Service, and Shelter Systems. And finally, our Carroll County Public Schools PTA, PTO organizations that help to sponsor Carrolltown Elementary School, Century High School, Cranberry Station Elementary School, East Middle School, Friendship Valley Elementary School, Liberty High School, Manchester Elementary School, Mount Airy Middle School, North Carroll Middle School, Sandy Mount Elementary School, and West Middle School. Again, first of all, thank you all those sponsors, and again, congratulations to our outstanding teachers, and thank you to our local business community for your continued support of our schools, our students, and our staff. We're very excited to recognize these folks, and we'll be providing more information about the next steps as we get closer to recognizing our Teacher of the Year. So I'm happy to share good news, and that's great news because we have outstanding teachers in Carroll County Public Schools, and I'm proud to be able to recognize that outstanding work. Students, you know we miss you, and I know this is hard. Stay strong, stay well. Know that we're here to help you in any way we can. You heard a couple people talking about some of the examples of the work that's happening in our system to attempt to continue to support you. We continue to work every day to get answers to questions that I know a lot of students and families still have, especially when I think about our seniors. I'm the parent of a senior myself. I have questions too, like graduation. That's probably first and foremost on everybody's mind. please know I want more than anything to provide that rite of passage for our seniors and have that opportunity for a graduation ceremony. I can't tell you yet what that might possibly look like or how it's going to happen depending on what happens here, but please know that's something I want to see happen, and whether that's some modified form or postponed to a little bit of a later date, we'll work with what we're able to do, but please know that's something I want to have happen. That's like I said, a rite of passage that every one of you, every one of our seniors deserves, and we'll work to do whatever we can to make something happen there. And again, as we get more information, as we learn more about, what's coming, that'll help us in terms of being able to answer some of these questions. So I appreciate your patience. Please know we want answers to those questions as well. Teachers and staff, and you've heard about some of the work of our employees and our teachers. I can't say enough about the incredible work you're doing in such trying times. And I know you're also taking care of your families, and I know you have things that you're having to deal with as well at the same time. But I just want to say thank you. I can't thank you enough. All the behind-the-scenes work that's been going on. And I know you're doing everything you can, just like we're doing everything we can to make some of these important functions continue. Like Ms. Herbert said, there's no replacement for welcoming kids into our schools and being able to pat you on the back and see you in person. But I'm so appreciative of the efforts of everybody to try to get some continuity of learning happening, things like meal programs, cleaning of buildings, distribution of laptops, and about 1 million other things happening each and every day. I couldn't be more proud of how our school system, our employees, and our community has responded. And so with that, I want to pause. I'd like to ask our three chiefs, Cindy McCabe, our chief of schools, Jason Anderson. Welcome back, Mr. Anderson, and congratulations on the birth of your baby daughter. Our chief academic and equity officer, as well as John O'Neill, our chief operating officer, to provide the board and the public with some updates on how things are progressing in Carroll County Public Schools. So, Mr. Anderson, since you've been out for a little bit, I'm sure you're well rested with a new baby in the house. So we'll turn to you first.
Thank you, Dr. Lacker, and good evening, board members. Yeah, there has been a ton of work taking place over the last 3 weeks, and as President Savigny mentioned, we've basically done 3 years' work in 3 weeks. But with that said, I just want to go ahead and thank our school leaders, our students, their families, and honestly, the staff that I have the opportunity and privilege to serve, that being the curriculum instruction, special education, equity, accountability. Everyone's been working tirelessly to make sure that we are availing the necessary tools, content, and resources for our students and families and teachers. We have done a significant amount of work in regards to this week. 18,000 BrainQuest workbooks began to arrive at homes for our students pre-K to 8. Those were delivered directly to the homes, and these resources are to serve as an augmentation and to support learning that's taking place in the home. In addition to that, our content supervisors have been working around the clock to make sure that we have availed and provided content for our teachers looking at Q4. We know that Q4 is going to start a little bit later to provide some more time to our students in Q3. However, we will be providing content for the first 4 weeks right now that we're planned on doing. That content is available presently right now for weeks 1 and 2 on our CCPS Learning resource site, which is on the web, on our website, CCPS website. In addition to that, a big thanks to our high school leaders, our administrators, spending time this week putting together the high school packets at the buildings, which will be mailed to our students. For those students that are having issues with connectivity or access to a device, those types of things. So people have been working around the clock to make sure that's been done. Our pre-K-8 students will receive weeks 1 and 2 packets in the next 10 days. But again, teachers can access those packets for the next couple of weeks or the first 2 weeks of Q4 on our resource site. These packets, like the workbooks, are intended to serve as an augmentation. As always, teacher autonomy, teacher discretion is appropriate, and the teachers know their students the best. But we did want to go ahead and continue to support those students that may not have the same access or connectivity as their peers. It was mentioned earlier, Google Classroom. We're approaching 26,000 Google Classrooms that have been set up in CCPS in the last 3 weeks. That is a feat, and that is something that we are now in a position to continue to not only to purvey content, but also to be able to continue to engage and communicate with our students and their families. I've been receiving some communication this week in regards to what are we using for video opportunities. Well, we're all on it right now. Microsoft Teams is accessible by our students and teachers. And students do not have to have this at home. This can be a simple link that can be provided to the students that can be pushed out by the teacher via an email or through a Google Classroom, and students and teachers can go ahead and engage in some online video-based learning through Microsoft Teams. As far as AP is concerned, a big thanks to Troy Barnes and Eric King for working together. Our CCPS students who are enrolled in AP courses and who have previously registered for the AP exams are encouraged to continue their studies and be planning on taking their AP exams in May. The College Board has recognized the extreme circumstances that we're in right now and will be making it available for students to be taking the AP exams remotely, and it can be done on a smartphone or on a computer to shorten the testing time to about 45 minutes with some time responses. And the focus will be on the content topics that were taught earlier in the year. Students who lack a device, we're going to be working with high school principals to figure out how we can get those devices, but it sounds like we've done an amazing job this week in getting those devices to the kids that may need them. If connectivity continues to be an issue, we're starting to have those conversations on potential alternative locations where we can safely make that happen for our students. Where we are now is, we went through phase one. Phase one is really availing content to our teachers, hard copies to our teachers, digital content to our teachers. Phase two is really about now building the capacity of our teachers, not only the capacity of our teachers, but also the capacity of our families and of our students. It's often said that we work with digital natives, and there's a lot of discussion out there about that right now. But what we're learning, and I think Board Member Herbert said it best, is that these kids are also learning how to do this also as a student. And this isn't social media. This is actually instructional technology for pedagogical and instructional purposes, which is very, very different than what a lot of our kids are used to. But we're going to get there. So we need to continue to focus now over the next several weeks, building the capacity, enhancing the instructional environment, and the experience for our kids and for our teachers. So with that said, we are going to be showcasing 2 to 3 teachers every week on some outstanding things that are going on out there in our schools. We're going to be highlighting those teachers and pushing that out to our community and other teachers so teachers can learn from other teachers on, let me steal that idea from them. That was a great idea. Also, in addition to that, our instructional technology team, who is well, now we're down to a team of 2 because one is out on medical leave right now. They have been amazing. And let me just say, Kelly Hammond, Adam Weller, and Terry Dorier have been phenomenal in helping us stand up all of this. They are going to start doing some drop-in sessions, online conference sessions, if you will, for teachers that can drop in to learn about an instructional application, to learn how to do something a little bit better, to get some more ideas. This is going to be ongoing, and this is going to be throughout the day. That will be recorded also for our teachers, where they can go ahead and get some more ideas. Special education, a big shout out to Nick Shockney and his team. We were given the direction by the state to make sure that we look at amending our IEPs to make sure that we are still providing support and service to our students. We have developed an individualized continuity of learning plan template that is being put in place that basically modifies, if you will, the actual IEP to make sure that our students are still getting what they need. And so just like an IEP, these plans are being presented to to the families as well, because our family members are an important piece of our IEP team. And so we're doing that this week. We started doing that week. This is a slow roll. Our special education teachers are doing a totally different job right now. They are trying to figure out how to meet the needs of some of our most needy students, and how do we do that virtually, right? So we're figuring that out as well. We're contacting families all this week. We'll continue to be contacting families. If there's any issues with what we're going to be doing, we're going to be holding online virtual meetings with those families to make sure that plan is solid and it's appropriate and it's acceptable by all members of the team. And then we'll start actually moving into our annual special education meetings, annual review meetings like we always have done. We're going to continue to move forward with that work. But again, it's going to be a similar process with our ESOL. Teachers, resource teachers, and advanced academic teachers are doing similar work. So again, a big shout out to Pam Mesta and Troy Barnes for that work as well. Equity piece, some of you have seen some stuff we started pushing out heavily last night. All of our work that all of our communication rather that we've been pushing out with a strategic focus on Google Classroom has now been translated into Spanish, which is our largest contingent of international families that we want to make sure we meet first. But we continue to work with our interpreters and translators to make sure that we continue to provide that communications that's necessary and just reassurance that we will get there. We have made it very clear to our teachers, and I can't thank them enough, that this is very much a slow roll right now. Yes, we have expectations, and yes, we want to cover content. However, we need to make sure that we are doing this methodically in a way that everyone is able to consume what it is that we're providing. Finally, the next phase we're looking forward to is really how do we look at the potential learning recovery opportunities down the road, and what will that look like? And that is very much in the forefront of our thinking right now, of what that may look like in the future. We're continuing to get more insight in regards to that, but I just wanted to let everyone know that we are very much focused on that. Again, I've communicated with a number of parents this week, and that is something that everyone is just questioning us about right now. So please know that we're thinking about that as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Lockard.
Thank you, Jason. I'll pause here for board member comments or questions.
Do we want to jump in with any questions, any clarification questions on things that Mr. Anderson put forth? Because that was a lot of information, a lot of activity going on.
Yes, I'd like to chime in. I know my granddaughter today, we were on the computer, and her second grade teacher did a science experiment right in front of her at the kitchen table, and we were allowed to join in, and we could do it later or take the ice cube or the ice ball and continue on. But her video was very clear and concise, and it was a very nice science project, and it was very complete. So for her first one, Caroline, we got a lot out of it. It was a really positive thing that she did this morning with that activity.
Mr. Anderson, do you mind if I ask a couple of clarification questions?
Sure.
So I know that we've got the workbooks that were developed for pre-K to 8 that are being mailed out. Those are going to every family.
Every student pre-K to 8 will be receiving one of those BrainQuest workbooks, correct?
Right, and those should be arriving shortly if folks haven't already received them?
Correct. They started arriving this weekend in some of our homes, and they will continue to be arriving this week.
Okay. And so I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands the vernacular that we're using. So those are the workbooks, but there are also packets that are being put together, but those are more for the students that don't have devices yet or don't have good internet access. The packets are for those folks and are only going to those students, correct?
Yeah, so for at the high school levels, we were really focusing on, we didn't want to get in, we didn't want to start to mandate certain things that need to be done by the teacher. Many of our teachers are very comfortable in providing the content necessary for their courses through a virtual learning environment. What we were hoping to do, yes, is to provide those packets for those students that don't have the same access or connectivity, to make certain that there's something in front of them, and then they can go ahead and be communicating with their teachers however they can, whether that be email, whether that be another type of method that they could go ahead and continue to use that as a resource. And quite honestly, we also wanted to have these packets to be a consistent foundational resource that all of us know that we are focusing on. The content supervisor spent a significant amount of time of putting this together to make sure that we were covering the appropriate content here in Q4 so that we could be providing the appropriate prerequisites for potential future courses.
You talked a little bit about virtual teaching sessions, how they're video options, that those are things that we're availing to teachers to be able to provide to their students, but we're not requiring that at this point, right?
Right now, no, we haven't said either way, but what we do anticipate seeing as we've articulated several times today, as people become more comfortable, and we're really only officially a week into it, as people become more comfortable with it, they are going to be willing to take more risk in regards to trying different types of instructional applications that will go ahead and be in the best interest of their students. And some of it might be a video piece that they'll be thinking about considering and doing and sitting down. Some folks are doing Screencastify, which is a recorded video where they can go ahead and practice and make sure they have that ready for their students as well.
And I know we have like 26,000 Google Classrooms set up at this point. Do we know if that's pretty much the universe of what we're looking for? Like, have all the teachers set up all of the Google Classrooms that we need them to have at this point?
Right. So once again, so this is one platform. This was our primary platform to look at availing content. However, our AP teachers use My AP as a platform, and they've become very comfortable with it, and they're using that. 26,000 classes, essentially, if you think about a high school teacher having multiple mods, they could have a class, so one teacher could have multiple classes, if you will. We also want to consider that a lot of our special education teachers have created their own classroom for their students that they work with and that they work, that are on their case management. Also, we have ESOL teachers that are actually creating a class for their own students also. We have also our arts teachers that are doing their own classes. So do I think I think that's an impressive number. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it grows a little bit more, but for the most part, I think that pretty much does a pretty good job when you're looking at about 25,000 students in a school system and a staff of a small fraction of that. I think that people are using it, and I think they'll become more proficient at using it as we move forward.
And are we aware of any teachers that haven't been able to set up any of their Google Classrooms? I just want to make sure that we're not leaving any students out of it, right? If there's 10% of the population of teachers that haven't been able to set up their classrooms, or do we think that we've got that pretty well covered?
Yeah, so our metrics right now are basically of those that are taking part into the Google for Education. So right now, I couldn't tell you an actual percentage of who is not using it. I will tell you, though, that we do get lots of questions daily, and I know that Gary Davis has shared with me on a number of occasions that we continue to get questions. We have folks that are on this continuum of understanding. Some folks are very comfortable and are going to go with it. Some of us are in a place where they're walking through each step and just have it set up at this point. And there are some folks that are still trying. I was talking to Carrie Gaddis earlier this week that she's getting some communication that they need help getting logged on. So we have folks all over the place. But right now, I feel like the majority of our teaching staff is feeling comfortable and pretty confident with it.
Mr. Anderson, I just wanted to tell you, I know as a parent's perspective, with everything that I've seen with my kids, my oldest daughter, she's had a couple different video meetings with her Spanish teacher, her science teacher for physics. They've done assignments where each kid videotapes the egg drop and then they post it onto the site. My son has had a video conference. My youngest, who's in kindergarten, she's been interacting with her art class and her music class, and the communication as a parent that we're getting is incredible too, because you have a lot of, yes, we are getting a lot of emails, but it's so engaging how the teachers are reaching out, making sure that the parents know this is what has been posted as an assignment, this is what they're concentrating on for the week. My son actually got his workbooks today. It has been incredible how fast everything happened and how the kids picked it up. Like, my daughter, I have to tell her to get off the computer. I'm like, stop doing your assignments for at least a minute. Like, she's constantly engaged. The one thing I have heard from parents is making sure that there's something somewhere where they can go in to find out how to help teach their child the math that their second grader might be learning. Understanding the content of an assignment. So is there something on the CCPS website that parents can go in on? And also, making sure that they know to reach out to their teacher or their principal if they have any questions as well.
So Ms. Battaglia, I appreciate you saying that. I think what you just said is the number one thing we want them to be able to do is to engage with the actual teacher, to go ahead and potentially think about how is it that they could probably provide some resources so that they feel like they're going to be more comfortable, working with their student or with their child rather, on a nightly or on a daily basis. So our resource site right now has been pretty much focused on providing those types of applications that are available for our families and giving them things to be done at home. But that is certainly something that we can continue to look at as we continue to plan for recovery and those types of things of, how are we teaching our families to teach, right? And how do we go ahead and build their confidence so that they feel like they're going to be successful? Because, listen, a lot of my friends are in a place where their students are in school as well, and they're at home right now trying to teach some sophisticated content at the high school levels, and they're at a loss at times. But I hear you, and that's something we can definitely take back to the team. But I totally agree. Big shout out to Angie McCausland and that curriculum instruction team. They've done amazing work in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. And I can't thank everyone enough, central office, our teachers, the parents who are making sure they are staying engaged. Everyone is chipping in and helping out the best they can, and it's phenomenal.
If I can just say a couple things. Again, the one thing I'd encourage, you mentioned about the videos. I've heard from some kids, I've heard from parents that got them, and they just love them because obviously the teachers miss the kids miss the teachers. Well, they got to see them on video, but their comments were, but they were at their house. The one had the dog bark like Mrs. Herbert does. The one had the wife walk through, and say, we know working at home isn't easy. You get distractions, and it was down to earth, and it was really neat. So, and I know I hate seeing myself on video, so I hate making one, but it is worth doing because the kids and the parents love it. And just compliments to everybody for how quickly they've gotten stuff out and how quickly they're working on this. And I love to hear we're already talking about learning recovery. That's neat.
Yes, sir.
And I've been hearing stories about how we're really doing a great job versus, other surrounding counties. Mm-hmm. That we were able to, there are other counties who are basically saying, well, we're going to take several weeks to train everybody and figure this all out. And I say, well, it'd be nice to be able to provide that much training, but we needed our kids to have access to stuff quicker than that. And I think the response time and capability of our teachers has just been truly exceptional.
Yeah, and I'll commend the building level leaders and the directors again for creating that environment where folks are receptive, right? That this needs to happen. We're going to do this. We can do this together.
And again, I think it's all wonderful to hear, and I again give my kudos as well to everyone involved in having our children continue their learning. Again, can you just sort of review for us again the accountability piece as far as the students and making sure that, yes, they are completing these assignments, they are being done, they are getting it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when these things have been provided, we try to triangulate the effort, right? So the workbooks, the packets, and then virtually as well. And so, no, it doesn't have to be completed every single page. Again, what we were hoping to do was to provide a foundational source of information that teachers didn't feel like they were on their own also, that they had something to go from and to work from. And we wanted our content supervisors to avail that direction, if you will, and that guidance. So that was what that was about. But no, we've clearly said often that every single page doesn't have to be completed, right? But you know, if you're going to be at home, and like all of us that are trapped in our homes right now, you know, it doesn't hurt to go back and review some work or something like that. But there are some kids that they have it, they got it, and they don't need it. Or there's going to be teachers like, we don't want to use that. We want to use our content, and they're going to go ahead and do that. So I wanted to make that clear. Again, we were just trying to provide resources for our folks so they didn't feel like they were out on their own.
I had a question, Mr. Anderson, and it's kind of also what Dr. Dorsey was saying regarding the accountability piece. I know for me, being in college and doing all my work online, a lot of my, well, not a lot of grade, but some of my grade is also based on participation. So whether, you know, I'm engaged into discussions or, you know, I'm answering a question or talking to another student, is that something that we're also looking at doing, particularly probably more in the high school level, that the students are engaging, and part of that participation will be on their grade as well?
So I'm gonna hold off on that response for Ms. McCabe to go ahead and answer, because she's running point for us for the state as it relates to accountability and grading and what the potential plans are as we moving forward. But yeah, no doubt, right? Without proper engagement, you're really not going to feel like the student really has a sense of it. But I'll let her talk more about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are going to have some questions about what is the accountability, how are we going to grade pieces of information, how are we going to advance the kids through the end of the year, and I think we're waiting from the state for a lot of that guidance, right? And so very interested in hearing what Ms. McCabe has to say.
Right. That's a great question.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson before we shift gears a little bit? I did have one other quick follow-up, Mr. Anderson, about the devices that we're delivering to students. Do you have an idea of how complete we are on that? I know there were several thousand that we needed to distribute.
Right. So that also is a Miss McCabe answer. She's been managing that and working that with the schools. So it seems like it's going well, but I'll let her talk more about it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Jason. We'll turn things to Cindy now. And as part of that conversation, you know, we did issue third quarter, how we're closing third quarter. That guidance went out last week. We still have some decisions that have to be made about fourth quarter. Some of that is obviously dependent, like all these other things, on what's the extent of our closure, what kind of directive might we get from MSDE or the state superintendent. But obviously that'll be hopefully coming soon. So that's another one of those kind of big key points that questions that we want to clarify. But I will turn things to Ms. McCabe, who I know will talk about laptop distribution, as well as some of the considerations around what we've done with grading so far and accountability and anything else you might have.
Thanks, Dr. Lockhart. So today was day 3 of our laptop distribution. We had over 1,500 requests for laptops from families. And as of today, we've distributed 1,104 laptops. So I think we've gotten a large percentage of them delivered just in the first 3 days. But those distributions will continue throughout this week and a little bit of early next week as well, depending on what works for each family. But that distribution was made very deliberately. We set out to have distribution occur at each school site. We had procedures in place for every school to use that included social distancing measures and as little contact as possible. and it was really handled by staff, the administration from each school, staff from IT, as well as a small group of staff from each school. So each school handled that on their own, and it's gone extremely well. As far as what's been happening with building administrators and school level directors, they have been, the principals and assistant principals have been holding virtual staff meetings. They've been setting expectations for what distance learning looks like and what that instruction should look like, what the communication should look like from the teacher, as well as those teacher office hours. And they've been supporting teachers and families through the first couple of weeks of implementation. They've also handled not only the distribution of laptops, but the distribution of instruments so that our students can be working on that at home. They've also been problem-solving individual situations for distance learning. We have some students who don't have access or have limited access, so building principals and teachers are making sure that they're working with the families to find something specific for them that will work. The building principals have also been implementing grading for quarter 3. As Dr. Lockard said, that communication went out on Monday. It basically extends the grading window for quarter 3 through April 17th. And it gives students a chance to turn in missed work or to increase the grade that they had on March 13th, which was the last day that they were in school. As Dr. Lockard said, we're working with the state on what fourth quarter grading will look like so that we can be as consistent as possible across the state.
Cindy, let me interrupt this for a second. I apologize, folks. I think I said that communication around third quarter grading came out at the end of last week. What feels like maybe 2 weeks ago to me was actually just Monday. So my apologies. That information just came out Monday.
Elementary schools, the administrators there and a small group of their staff are also actually working on preparing to print report cards for pre-K through 2 students because they don't have access to HAC at pre-K through 2. And they're also preparing to print report cards for instrumental music. Mr. Streaker and his department, Student Services, has been continuing to handle new enrollments. I know it's crazy to think about, but we're still getting people moving into our community over this time, and families leaving and withdrawing. So we're still in the process of handling all of that. And we're also handling, making sure that all of our students get the mental health services that they need. And we're checking in on students and families who we've been working with throughout the year regularly. And our PPWs are also helping for us to stay in contact with our families. They're helping to deliver meals as well and other instructional materials. And then finally, our IT department has really been the backbone of making sure that this distance learning is going to be able to take place. So Gary Davis and his folks have been integral with preparing everything for the laptop distribution, the re-imaging of the computers, the cleaning of the computers, getting everything ready to be distributed. They also have been rock stars on the help desk, as you can imagine. As people go to figure out how to do this distance learning thing, there's a lot of questions that come up. And so our help desk has been very, very busy, and they've done a tremendous job answering those questions from teachers and the community. And so that's a quick update on what's been happening on this end. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question, and I don't know who this goes to, but it just went off in my head that I know we're handing out the laptops, but I remember several months ago, Comcast, I think, stated that they were going to try to help parents get internet to their houses, and I didn't know where that was, or if we can pursue that, or can anybody answer that for me?
Dr. Locker, do you know where we are with Comcast?
So I'll jump in, and I'll probably defer to Gary or Jason a little bit. Remember, Internet Essentials, which is a program, and we've advertised that and actually put some links to it on our website under the FAQ. That's a program that does provide internet access for families who can't afford that. But remember, you have to have the cable running to your house, first of all, so it can be activated. So that doesn't help in places where Comcast doesn't run to. And I don't know if Gary or Jason wanted to provide any more. We do have, like I said, we do have information about that for families on our website.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say the other thing that Comcast has done is that they've opened up their wireless hotspots. That they have a thing where they actually use everybody's wireless at home and to create hotspots throughout wherever their service area is. So they've opened that up. Previously, you had to be a customer of Comcast, and now they've opened that up. Ting has done the same thing in downtown Westminster, so that is available for free. And we put the information, made it available on our website that with a link that shows where you can go and see where the hotspots are in Carroll County for both Xfinity and Ting. So that's another thing that they've done in addition to the Internet Essentials, which, Jason, you can comment on.
No, yeah, absolutely. And so to just piggyback that, we have our community liaisons as well as our international student liaisons also working with individual families to see if it is a possibility. But as Dr. Locker said, you need to have the pipe run into the building for that to happen, so that's the actual home.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. I think as Commissioner Frazier, I talked to Commissioner Weaver the other day, and I know Commissioner Wance is working on a lot of stuff, and my concern's been you've got these small towns that it runs down the street, but it's not into the house. And he thought there might be a grant coming out from Comcast for doing those connections. Have you heard anything about that, or has anybody heard anything about that? It would be great if there's a grant to bridge that gap.
There's a lot of talk about a lot of different things. Unfortunately, the biggest challenge with all of this at this point is that it's a time constraint. It's not these things aren't going to happen quickly, but certainly for the future. But there are a lot around the state. There's just a lot of talk because I think people are finally realizing. Unfortunately, it takes a situation like this sometimes to realize the digital divide that still exists out there. And maybe this will be the thing that finally lights the fire under people to get this situation taken care of.
And I know that as a Board of Commissioners, we have put money out there that if you wanted to run that cable to your house, now we're not going to pay for the whole thing, but we have grants that are out there for people to use that could help them pay for that cable getting to your house. We've had it out there for a while. Some people have taken advantage of it, some have not. Even with that grant, though, sometimes it is prohibitive to run a cable to your house, depends on how far the line has to go.
That's a really great point there, Commissioner Frazier. And have we told our communities or our families that are in that situation that grant money is available so that they might be able to better handle the situation?
I mean, we've been advertising that for, I'd say, 2 years. It's out there. Go on our website, find out about it. I honestly don't know how much is left from the original amount that was put out there, but I know a large portion of it has gone unused. But I really feel that the reason most of it's gone unused is the fact that even with us a grant of 50%, and that's what we're looking at right now, paying half, the other half might be just out of reach. Therefore, it's a nice idea, but for some people, if it's depends on how long the run has to be, even 50% is not enough.
Commissioner Frazier, is there a way that the other commissioners can make sure, particularly the rural areas, understand this? Because I can tell you, I know one community in particular, they're not aware of any of that. A lot of the feedback I hear is there's no way for them to get internet to their house from Comcast, and it's like $10,000 to run the line. So I think it's important that the commissioners also kind of reiterate that a little bit more to their areas.
Every time a request comes in to us for cable, basically, or for high-speed internet to come to a house, we refer that to Mark Ripper. Mark Ripper comes up with several solutions that the homeowner could use for this. Now, it doesn't have to be the cable line. It could be the radio signal, and there's other providers out there that do other things as well. But Mark will give them the options that they have for that particular house. But like you said, let's say it's $5,000 to $10,000 to run that line. Even if we gave them a grant for 50% of that, the other half of that's a lot of money. So even with that 50% given from us, and like I said, I don't know the status of how much money we have left in there, it still might be too much. I mean, I wouldn't be willing myself to pay $5,000 to have the line run to my house. I just, not something I'd be willing to do. I'd go without it or find another source.
And one other factor in this, to piggyback on what Commissioner Frazier is saying, is, you know, the challenge for Comcast is, you know, to run a line, it's just cost prohibitive, and there's a limit that they have rules for what they will do, like with the distance and the density. It's built into the franchise agreement in the county, so you know they follow those rules. So if you don't fall within the rules of where they provide service, that's why they don't do it. And there's a cost if you want it, then there's a cost associated with it. The other aspect of it is that with Carroll County, when we did the Carroll County Public Network, the good part about it is that we hit most of the county, right, when we connected all the schools up. So we have that backbone of fiber, but ultimately it's going to take a service provider to use that backbone and build out what they call the last mile to these areas. And again, if you're that provider, if their density isn't there, it's hard to justify, you can't make, from a business perspective, it's very challenging. I know that there are options for wireless is also with some of the local providers. And when you have a rural areas like that, it just becomes challenging for business, even with the backbone built out that the county invested in. It still can be, cost prohibitive. And one of the challenges, particularly with Carroll County, is because of the rural nature and the residential nature of it, there are businesses that definitely have taken advantage of the business and industry side of providing service, but the county is very large, and there's so many places that are rural or residential that it's hard to make a business case to provide the service. So I think what's going to happen as we go forward, because of the needs that have been that are so obvious that we just don't have the coverage to be able to do all the distance learning. I think that there will be additional funds provided and different mechanisms to help providers provide services where it might, in most cases, be cost prohibitive. I mean, that remains to be seen, but that's what the hope is.
I have to say, since we've been working on this problem, and we have been working on it ever since I've been in office, and probably long before that, Comcast has changed their rules on density. They've actually almost cut them in half, where before it had to be, I'd say, 20 houses within a mile. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't remember exactly what it was. They cut it in half to 10. So more people are able to get the cable if they want it. They've also allowed homeowners to dig the trench, basically, because one of the major costs of that was the trenching and then putting the cable line in it. So they have allowed homeowners to either rent the equipment themselves and dig a trench, or have a third party dig the trench, and they'll come back as long as everything's done properly and just put the cable in. So things have been getting better with Comcast over the past several years with the agreement that we have with them. But like I said, I mean, there's money out there. We're also looking into grants from the federal government to light up areas that are kind of out by themselves. We're looking into that money. Of course, when you talk about the federal government, you talk about thousands of communities looking at that same amount of money. So we've put in our proposals for that. Haven't heard too much back about it so far, but we're hopeful that we'll get some of that. But we have been working on this problem for years, and we're making the bubble smaller, I guess, of the number of people that don't have access, but there are still a number that don't.
And I understand the rural areas and the challenge of that, and I know you guys have done a lot on that. My concern with this popping up, what we're going through now, are the people that have it running by their house. Some of them could walk to Manchester Elementary the other day, and I'll say, do you have internet for your kids? No, we can't afford it. So if Comcast is saying, we'll give it free for whatever, 3-4 months, but we won't run it to your house, the running it to the house in those towns ought to be relatively minimal. And somehow if those people could get that help, because I recognize, like you say, I wouldn't pay $2,000 or $3,000 to run it to my house out in the boonies either. But in town, you know, I just can't imagine it's that much. And thanks, guys, for all the comments, too. Thanks.
Okay.
So, Mr. McCabe, just a couple of follow-up questions. I know you said that we had 1,500 requests for devices and that we've already delivered more than 1,100 of those. Do we think that that matches the need? Did we get a request from the families of any students that don't have any devices in the house? Do you think the 1,500 is servicing everyone that doesn't have a device?
Correct. There were some families who decided that they did not want a device. They felt that they had enough computers and devices in their home, and that they were not interested in borrowing a laptop. So many of our families were already set with computers and internet. So we really only got a little over 1,500 requests to borrow laptops.
Okay, and that was consistent with what we saw in the survey that we sent out to the community about who would need devices?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And I know that, does it make sense to now touch a little bit more on the accountability piece? I know you talked about third quarter grading windows getting extended, and also starting to talk about how fourth quarter things would be graded, but can you give us a sense of how things are coming out from the state and what we're still waiting for from a guidance perspective?
So yes, so the reason that we extended the third quarter grading window is because we know that depending on how we determine to grade fourth quarter, the third quarter grade could be what is used to determine GPA. And so we wanted, while everyone is fully engaged right now, in the next few weeks, we wanted to give students the opportunity to put in the work that they needed to put in to make sure that that GPA, that the grade and the GPA is where they need it to be. So as far as fourth quarter goes, you know, we're hearing different things around the state. We're hearing about pass fails, pass incompletes, and so that leads to other conversations about how that enters into someone's GPA or doesn't. So we won't make any final decision about that until we get more guidance from the state. And right now, we are very busy making sure that families and students understand the importance of that third quarter grade, and they're taking advantage of the extra time and the extra opportunities that our teachers are giving.
I think we've gotten a lot of feedback from students directly and from parents as well that, you know, they're not enamored with a pass-fail approach because that doesn't really incent, so it kind of penalizes the students who have been working really hard through the course of almost 3/4 of a year may have A's or B's in those classes. It takes away from the amount of effort that they've put in so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we're definitely taking into consideration, and it's something that we're talking about in all of our state meetings as assistant superintendents.
All right, thank you, Cindy, for the update, and I want to make sure we get to John O'Neill.
Thank you, Dr. Lockhart, and good evening, board members, Commissioner Frazier. I think at our meeting just a week ago, I kind of stepped through things going on in every operations department, and in the interest of your time this evening, and the fact that ahead of you, you have a full agenda of business and operation items, so hopefully that's evidence that the world of operations is thriving. I'll just give you two updates, and only other than that say that and this echoes what Cindy and Jason have shared. It's amazing. It's humbling. It's incredible the amount of work that so many people are doing, either in response to the current situation or looking ahead to sort of take some things to the next level that you can never get to and improve some processes for when we do come back to a more normal operation. And it's just, almost all of our employees, no matter what we ask, they're willing and ready and able to do that and then do more without even being asked. And so it's just very much a humbling thing to see, and I think it's something obviously we can all be proud of. So with that said, I'll just give you two other updates from operations that for your sake and for the sake of the public. One thing that's happening in the background, and there's any number of people, all the departments, the schools, the curriculum and instruction are part of this, but certainly Mr. Hartlove and his team and Mr. Williams, who I had to remind, we think of Dwayne as our security person, but he's also our designated emergency preparedness person, and so he's been working some long hours through this. Dwayne's our point of contact with the County Emergency Operations Center and also with MEMA and up through FEMA. And so we do know ultimately that there's a possibility that some of our expenses that are directly related to either responding directly to the COVID-19 situation or standing up and deploying the online learning opportunities, some of those expenses may ultimately be eligible for some reimbursement, either through FEMA or through the education fund of the Federal CARES Act. But in order to even apply for that someday, you have to make a determination of what could qualify and then track, record, and code those expenses in certain ways. And so all those folks, as I mentioned, are working to make sure that happens. And sometime in the future, we hope to be able to report back that we've applied for as much reimbursement for you as possible. Just know that, historically, with hurricanes or things like that, nothing at this level, that tends to take a while, so you shouldn't anticipate that soon, probably sometime in the next fiscal year. But that's something that's in place at the moment and being worked on. And then lastly, so many of you have talked about this, but I wanted to share some specifics. Our meal distribution program to students, none of us can say enough about Ms. Sarno and Ms. Swam and all of the folks who work in their enterprise and their efforts, and the volunteers that are helping them at all the sites. It's incredible. The program has grown from the very beginning. It's grown exponentially this week. Just while this meeting's been going on, Ms. Sarno sent me the newest numbers for today. We served 2,084 students today, 6,252 meals. We did expand to an additional site at Elmer Wolf this week. I know Principal Belsky is very, very happy about that. Next week, we will further expand additional sites at Spring Garden Elementary and at East Middle. And we will look then, once they're up and running, to the possibility of expanding in other areas of the county as well for additional sites. So more to come all the time. And we do try to push this information out to the communities, and it's always updated on your website as well for the public in the FAQ and in other places. Two more updates on the food distribution program. Beginning on 4/14, on April 14th, when we come back from the days off in the approved calendar, we are going to undertake a joint venture between Ms. Sarno and Mr. Hardesty and his folks to deliver meals, not necessarily door to door, but to consolidated stops in the Tawnytown Elementary feeder area or school district area. And Mr. Hardesty, Mr. O'Mealy, who works, not your Mr. O'Mealy, but Mr. O'Mealy in transportation, have worked hard with Ms. Sarno to lay that program out and make it happen. And another form of people stepping up in partnership, 4 of our bus contractors who serve that school in that area leapt at the opportunity to volunteer to be part of this program. And so that will take place, and we'll hope that it goes very well on the 14th. And then lastly, I think Commissioner Frazier asked this question at the meeting last week, and it's something we have been looking at, and we're going to try it out tomorrow, this Thursday. Given the days off in the approved calendar, Ms. Sarno and her team of folks is going to serve 3 meals on Thursday, and that would cover Thursday itself, Friday, and Monday. And this will give us a chance to see what that looks like in terms of our capacity to make that happen. And it might be a model we could look at further, but we'll have a very good sense of it after tomorrow when we have a chance to take a look at how it went and see how things go. And so I'll stop there with that unless you have questions, because I know you still have a full list of topics to get to for action. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I think you might be muted, Donna.
I was. Thank you very much for that.
There you go.
So I just wanted to make some follow-up comments. That was a really tremendous effort that Ms. Sarno and the food services team have been putting in, and this plan for opening up additional sites and the plan with Mr. Hardesty for delivery, that's in direct, even though they're already working so far and above what their normal is, they're still finding new and improved and innovative ways to see how we can reach additional families. So I can't thank them enough for all of that effort.
We appreciate that. I'll let her know. I'll let them know. It's truly phenomenal. It truly is.
I have to say I appreciate everything, Don. I've also appreciated that you took my comment to heart and trying to put out several days at once for the meals. I do appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Always, Commissioner Frazier. We've got you slotted to drive a bus on Wednesday.
My license for that is not up to date. Sorry.
Okay.
So, Dr. Lockwood, does it make sense now? So we've had the 3 different area updates from our chiefs. Does it make sense to open it up for any additional questions that folks might have or clarification on other issues regarding our current situation with COVID-19?
That's absolutely fine, yep.
Hey, Ms. Battaglia, I know you had some questions that you wanted to ask about career and tech.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I didn't know, I know some of the print production stuff for Tomlin Technology has been they're borrowing or using to make the 3D masks. But I was wondering regarding our nursing program, if we still had any masks, gloves, any PPE that we could potentially give to the hospital for them to use. If we're not using it at the time, is there something that, if we had it, could they potentially use it?
Sure. Let me make sure I'm not muted. I don't think I am. That's a great question, Ms. Battaglia. And the short answer is no, we don't have really any additional items to provide. But the reason for that is from the very beginning, Mr. Williams, as our point of contact with the county emergency operations, took inventory, delivered most of our inventory or much of our inventory to the county. So typically that would go to emergency operations in the health department, and then they would distribute it as needed in the wherever the highest needs are in the county. So not just the personal protective equipment in our nursing program, but any inventory we had in the system. So, for instance, in facilities maintenance. There were some masks for different purposes. So all of that was inventoried. Much of that's been delivered, and whatever we do have left is already earmarked for them for when they call. And in the meantime, for our own sake, because we're an essential business too, and we're not trying to suggest that we're the same as the clinicians on the front lines of dealing with the pandemic by any means, but we have people reporting and performing essential functions. So Mr. Prokop and his folks have been hard at work in trying to find any kind of additional masks. And I think we're good on gloves and other things, but any additional masks that we can inventory. These wouldn't be masks necessarily that would be competing with what healthcare needs, but just face coverings that we could have handy. So yes, on both directions we're looking at that. And Mr. Eccles, Bill Eccles has taken the lead on working with the community business person, and it's my understanding that Bill either already has or is very much close to getting the first amount of equipment out of one of our high schools and providing to them so that that equipment or the supplies, the materials can be part of the masks that they're making. And we're just, unless Chris or somebody has a different update, my understanding is that the Board of Ed or the school system is just donating that material, and we'll resupply whenever we reopen for normal operations in the future.
I think it's wonderful to know, because I know there's been a lot of questions I've been hearing in the community, well, does the school system have stuff that the hospital needs it? And so I'm glad to hear that has already taken, it's already been happening. So I think it's a wonderful thing that we're doing. Thank you.
Sure.
And Dr. Lockard, you made some general comments early on about graduation and doing some contingency plans for that. And I guess that, we're still in the throes of trying to get all of these virtual platforms up and running and working effectively and efficiently. So I know that we haven't put a whole lot of effort into brainstorming around graduation, but at what point would we kind of transition to thinking about, okay, what will graduation look like for our seniors this year? Because I know there are a large contingency of parents who are concerned about that.
Right, me included. So probably what's going to, trigger that moving forward is whatever happens with the state's decision about April 24th. Right now, we're operating, I think we can all guess we're probably going to be out past April 24th, but we need that official word. Then we need to have some understanding of when or what it looks like as it relates to social distancing, in the next several months. We've gotten lots of community giving us good ideas about how you could do this, how you could do it virtually. Could we wait and have it later in the summer? There's a bunch of ideas. I think we need a few more weeks to kind of see what the next few months are going to look like, and then we'll start to put some of those ideas together. I know everybody's wrestling with the same thing, and what I said at the beginning was, look, I think this is an important milestone in every person's life, and so I want to do whatever I can to try to make that happen in some form or fashion for our graduating students. I don't know exactly what that form or fashion is yet. I do know that I need a couple more weeks at least to kind of see what the next few months look like, and then we'll go from there. If we know we can't have them as we normally would, end of May, early June, we'll get that out as soon as we can. We will work on what could the next possibility be, what could the alternative be, what could the potential solution be, because I want to provide, like I said, some form or fashion of that experience for our students. So I don't have a solid answer for you right now, but I do need a little more time.
And I think I recall us saying about a week ago that typically the state was going to be providing guidance by April 1st about what graduation requirements were going to be. Am I misremembering that?
I don't know that they were going to give us. I know that they're actively working on that, and Cindy, you can help me here. I know that there's a group formed by folks from MSDE from around the state that are looking at what things potentially could be waived by the State Board of Education that are in COMAR, correct?
That's correct. We haven't heard any final word on that, but that's something that all of the assistant superintendents are involved in across the state.
And Dr. Locker, did you want to make some comments about, so spring break, we're going to be still observing a regular spring break of Friday and Monday. I'm sorry, it sounds like there might be some feedback on the line from what I'm saying.
No, I can hear you. It was a tiny bit distorted, but you know, we've made a decision not to alter our existing school calendar, and so we had already planned for a Friday, Monday. This is very consistent with other systems around the state. Some of those folks already actually took spring breaks, but the Friday, Monday observance, we decided to keep that in. I will remind you that the primary election, which many of you already know about, was moved from later in April to a time later in June, and we'll provide some information to the community. That will then become just a regular day of school, well, as regular as virtual learning is. But we felt at this point in time we were going to honor what existed in our calendar and has existed since the board approved it, you know, a year and a half ago. You know, we'll see. I'm fairly confident the state will waive some of the days of the initial 2-week closure, and we'll go from there. We'll work from there.
But I agree with you that it's very important to at least give those 2 days that we had built into the calendar, because staff, teachers, everybody have been working at light speed, I think, over the last couple of weeks, and everybody deserves a little bit of that break. But we're still providing the flexibility to parents and students that they can do some work on those days, some schoolwork if they want to on those days. But teachers just won't be available for their office hours.
That's correct. That's correct. And hopefully, you know, because I know our families and our students and our parents, me being one of them, you know, we've got our plates are full as well, doing our jobs. I'm talking about our families now, doing our jobs and helping our kids. It is a holiday weekend, and maybe if there's any little bit of normalcy, you know, we can enjoy that time as was scheduled in the calendar already. So we didn't want to change that.
Board members, any other miscellaneous questions or clarifications that you'd like to make or ask? I'm not hearing anything, so if any of you are actually talking and are muted, now would be the time to check your mute buttons. And it sounds like we're good. So I just want to thank everyone for all of their comments. It is abundantly evident how much work is going on around the system, and I just want to say again how grateful and thankful we are. And the pace at which we're moving during this environment is pretty incredible. It's we're looking for progress, not perfection. So we appreciate that staff members, that community members, that parents, that students, everybody are being patient and working with us during this very interesting and challenging times. But I think that our school system has really risen to the challenge. So I just want to send my thanks out to everyone once again.
Thank you, Ms. Savigny.
So with that, we are still on item number 3, and we did actually have several recognition statements that we wanted to make for the month. We have the observance of 7 different recognitions. So if we wanted to run through those very quickly, I believe, Dr. Dorsey, you had the first one. Dr. Dorsey?
I don't know if we've lost Dr. Dorsey, or is she muted? I see you down there, Dr. Dorsey.
Looks like
Can you
she's
hear me
still
now?
There we go.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that little icon showing up when I'm muted and not. But anyway, again, I'm proud to kick this off by saying this is National Assistant Principals Week. Our assistant principals work hard making sure that our schools run safely and effectively. Our students excel academically and socially. Our teachers grow professionally, and our families and community members become involved and stay engaged in the education of our students. So thanks to all of our assistant principals for their outstanding work and leadership.
So, Ms. Battaglia, I think you have one next.
Yeah. April 19th through 25th is National Student Leadership Week. This annual recognition highlights the important role that student leaders play in our schools and in the community. We are fortunate to have a very strong and active student government association that gives students an opportunity to voice their opinions and develop their leadership skills. The board would like to thank Jackson Klingenberg and our student representative, and Grace Johnson, president of CCSGA, for their outstanding leadership and the excellent job they do representing our students.
April 19th to the 25th also is Administrative Professionals Week, and Wednesday, April 22nd is Administrative Professionals Day. Thanks to our clerical, secretaries, and administrative assistants, both in our schools and at central office. These dedicated and caring employees are essential to the daily operation of our schools and offices. They assist our students, staff, and the public in countless ways and play a vital role in their schools and our school system.
Public School Volunteer Week will be celebrated during the week of April 20th through 24th. Our school system is fortunate to have thousands of registered volunteers who assist our staff and students. Each year, our devoted volunteers donate over 120,000 hours of service to our school system, which ultimately benefits students and strengthens partnerships. We recognize the dedicated service of our volunteers during this special week and throughout the school year.
We also would like to recognize 3 important celebrations coming up before our next board meeting in May. School Lunch Hero Day will be observed on Friday, May 1st. This day is an opportunity for parents, students, and school staff to thank those who provide healthy meals each school day. We would like to give a special thanks to our food service workers this year for their exceptional efforts to provide meals to students who need them during the school closure.
National Teacher Appreciation Week is May 4th through the 8th, and Tuesday, May 5th, is the National Teacher Day. Our outstanding and dedicated teachers work hard every day to provide our students with high-quality instruction. This year in particular, they are showing their commitment by ensuring that our students continue to learn throughout the school closure by delivering instruction in new ways during challenging times. Thanks to our teachers for all you do for our students.
National School Nurse Day is Wednesday, May 6th. The professional nurses in our schools are dedicated to the safety, health, and academic success of all of our students. They play significant roles, not only in health care at their school, but also in helping students meet the challenges they face today, supporting education, and advancing student health. So thanks to our school nurses for all they do for our students and for our school community.
Thank you very much, members. Also, as a side note, in terms of the volunteer week information, I've always been amazed at the 120,000 hours of service, but if we now recognize the number of hours that all of our parents are giving to their students during the school day, I'm sure that number will jump even more dramatically. So thank you for those comments, and with that we can move on to section 4 under reports, and the first one up is the construction report. Dr. Locker, do you want to have some opening comments on that?
Sure. So board members, this is your monthly construction report. The construction industry is considered essential under the federal guidelines and the executive orders. The IAC has confirmed that information to the locals after the issuance of the orders. So we're continuing with some work as appropriate. Of course, social distancing notices are in place in all buildings, and we do have staff available. I believe Mr. Marks is here, and Mr. Prokop to answer any questions you might have.
I was just noticing the Liberty High School classroom and bathroom renovation, the LFI classroom. Last time we were looking at a hot water issue, so it's good to see that that's been resolved and that we don't need a hot water heater. So it looks like that's going to be removed from future projects, so that was good to note.
And I noted, of course, Career and Tech, we're in the middle of the bid process. It's been advertised. I think, and I could be wrong, you may have had pre-bid meetings, and I just wondered if you could just comment on how that process is going, and of course, the challenges you have by not being able to do a live pre-bid meeting and a lot of things going on.
Great question, Mr. Kyler. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. It was our biggest challenge right off the start with while we're in the middle of the bid mode, and what we've decided to do with the sensitivity obviously to our own staff in the schools, and to have large crowds like a bid this large would require 50-some plus people walking around the facility. So we had grave concerns for that, and so we've decided to do a virtual tour, and we've enlisted a video company that does great work where they can go into a room and quickly snap some 360-degree high-definition shots, and we're placing that videography of the entire school building, the existing building, on the bid documents. So any bidder can go on there and go into the spaces and see exactly what existing conditions are there.
Does it look like pretty active bidders out there right now? Is it too early to tell?
As of right now, we're in constant communication with our bid team and our construction manager through every single day. And from what they're telling us, they are getting a lot of responses. There are a lot of people. At first, it was tough getting them in touch as they're working remotely. An estimator on a PC has to get his own laptop or her laptop and go home and perform that function and tie to their databases. So they've gotten through a lot of those challenges. And it looks like we have a good response heading our way. We will see. I mean, we really don't know totally, but from what the feedback they are getting, it looks pretty good right now.
I have some similar questions with regards to timing. I mean, most of these projects that are in here, the work is expected to commence at supposedly the end of the school year, what it would have been the end of the school year, or June 20th, and then end in August. Are we seeing any issues with timing of any of these projects and resources being available to do the projects at this time? I know that things could change very dramatically over the next couple of weeks, but as of right now, do you see any impact to timing?
As of right now, we're working through a few challenges, but we think we're going to be okay. Certainly the undecision about full closure for the rest of the semester or not is impacting some of our decisions because we have some contractors available to go now into some spaces, but we don't want to go in and, tear down walls in Westminster High School for science, unless we really know that it's safe and possible to perform that. We are pre-buying many of the materials that we can buy right now to avoid a lot of the supply chain issues that are starting to pop up out there. So we're doing our best to identify those and see if we can get the contractors to pre-buy those now. The Career and Tech, as you see later in your agenda, you're approving some items on there like the transformer. Obviously, this phase 0 of this summer is very critical. Getting that new transformer delivered during the summer is critical because we have to reroute all the electricity to the existing building so that we can start our excavation for the new building addition. So far, so good. We haven't heard anything bad yet that makes us, get nervous.
Mr. Marks, with the economic crisis that's coming hand in hand with the health crisis, do you see any significant issues with either local or state funding for any of these projects coming up this summer?
As of now, no. We're not hearing any of that right now. It's a good question. Those items may pop up in the future, but as of right now, we're not hearing of any problems in that regard.
I have to say that the county money that's set aside for this, the Career and Tech, and also the future money, I guess, for East Middle is dedicated from income tax. So what's happening right now does not affect that money. That funding is there for Career and Tech. There's no effect on that because that money was put aside already. It has nothing to do with what's happening right now. Now, Ted could call me up and tell me I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure that's exactly the way it goes.
Thanks.
Board members, any other questions on the school construction report?
Yes, one more. East Middle, that bid package is out to the architects now. When would that probably come back to the board? June?
Yes, good call. In June, we're looking to bring that back to the board, and it is out. We're working on the complexities that normally we go through with packages that come in like that, but we think we have a good plan on review with our team. Mr. Carver's on board with us also, and we're looking forward to going through that process.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Marks.
No problem.
Thank you, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to item 4B, which is the legislative report. And Dr. Locker, do we want to shoot that directly over to Mr. O'Neill?
Right. I mean, it seems like, 100 days ago, but the General Assembly did wrap up early in the midst of the growing coronavirus pandemic. So John can speak most notably to Kerwin Bill, House Bill 1300, and the Bill to Learn Act, HB1, House Bill 1, which were two of the most significant pieces of legislation. And we were tracking those and giving you updates. And so I know that John is in the process of creating a final post-session report. So John, I don't know if you want to add any more to that or field any questions if you don't.
Sure. So hopefully within a week from now, if not sooner, I'll have a final report on your website, and we'll get that to each of you. And the way we've structured that in the past, unless the board wishes to change it, is the final report tends to just capture the bills that passed and then has sort of a column that's probably for your information and for staff action. It sort of describes at the high level action steps that are required because of that legislation. And as Dr. Locker said, they wrapped up earlier than the normal 90-day window, I think on March 18. So not as many things passed as we might have expected. However, two things that passed are very, 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 very significant pieces of legislation: the Kerwin Bill, House Bill 1300, and the Built to Learn Act, House Bill 1, which layers onto the traditional state capital school construction process. And so those things are in play. There were some tweaks at the end of the session, some amendments in the Senate. But substantially the bill, I'm talking about the Kerwin bill now, showed up being passed the way we talked about it, more or less, the accountability pieces, the policy pieces. The funding shifted up a little bit, and so if you were to look at earlier charts from legislative services on state funding earmarked for Carroll County or any of the counties over time, you would have seen that the early years, and early would mean it would start in FY22. That's when the funding formula changes would occur. We would receive more money in in the early years, 22, 23, and a little bit less money at the end of the timeline, but overall consistent with what the funding was we were looking at. And then at the county level, at least, you know, everything's sort of in flux now, considering where we all sit in the world. But where the county has been funding us, the charts remain the same as they were pre-session. There would be no commitment, local commitment, no commitment from the Board of Commissioners for public ed funding across the 10-year period or the 8-year period. So the other big amendment early in the process before the pandemic in the House, the minority party proposed an amendment that if state funding projections were not realized, were off by 7.5%, then that year's new money for Kerwin would be held. That amendment had failed in the House. It was revived in the Senate at the end, actually, in that case, in light of the pandemic, by the majority party leadership, and so that amendment did pass. And so if we faced any year where state revenues fell 7.5% short of what they were being projected for that year, then any additional Kerwin funds would not happen in that given year. So that was a pretty major amendment. And House Bill 1, which we were, if that was the option available, which we were cheering for in that case, as the vehicle to fund the East Middle project most likely, that did pass. It will take some time. There's some regulatory pieces that need to be worked out. The IAC needs to develop some regulations, and so that always takes a little bit of time to see how that looks and what the process would be. But based on discussions we've had and based on conversations we've had with our delegation and Delegate Krebs in particular, we feel very positive about what that bill would mean for us. It is a bill where the bonds are backed by casino revenue, and so right now there is no casino revenue to speak of, I would think, in light of the pandemic, and so that may change timelines. We'll have to see. I mean, that's speculative as well to see how long this goes on and what that means. But it does lend itself to a conversation that I know you'll eventually have with the Board of Commissioners at a joint discussion as to the timing of East Middle. We talked earlier at our meetings about how right now that project's not recognized in the county's discussion CIP. Now that the bill's passed, on one hand, that changes things. I guess the revenue question is now a little more of a question, at least in my mind. However, another perspective would be, and I'm not making a recommendation on behalf of Dr. Locker tonight, but another perspective would be to have that project ready, so whenever the revenue is final and whenever the regulatory guidance is in place, that's quote unquote shovel ready and sitting there, and we can be, if not first in line, one of the first in line, saying we're ready for our bite of that apple. So I know that's a conversation for another day with the other elected body, but that's kind of a 30,000-foot view.
So we would definitely want to have that be one of the items that we have on the agenda for the joint meeting with the commissioners in a couple of weeks.
Yes, and I believe you've talked about that, and so have they, and I think Ms. Wyndham is working on organizing that agenda, and she's aware that would be one of the items.
Board members, any questions on the legislative report?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so with that, we will move on to the action items. And we do have 4 of them on the agenda for this evening. The first, I need a motion for the approval of appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Board members, I'll give it to Dr. Lockhart for comments.
Thank you, Ms. Savigny. So, board members, tonight I have 2 promotional appointments I bring to you for approval. Both are individuals who have been serving in acting leadership capacities for us since the beginning of the school year. In both cases, the selection committee have reviewed the files and recommended that the 2 individuals be appointed to continue permanently in their roles. Of course, all this happened before we left for the closures. So I absolutely concur with these recommendations and bring you the recommendation of Betsy Donovan from acting principal to principal at the Career and Technology Center, and Jennifer Mitchell from acting assistant principal at Mount Airy Elementary School to assistant principal at Mount Airy Elementary School.
Board members, any questions? And Dr. Lockard, this is not the universe of actions that we will need to take through the end of the year, right? But these are the couple that we were able to get through before the school closure started to happen.
That is correct. There are more on the way.
Okay, not hearing any other questions or comments, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, if I could get a verbal aye, please.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Now we need a motion for the approval of the personnel action items.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
I'll second it.
seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, for the monthly personnel actions, we have just one leave of absence that's noted in your agenda packet.
Dr. Lockard, I did have one question. So this is a classroom teacher who is taking a leave of absence, and given the, and this isn't an issue with this particular person, but just in terms of, will that work, with the current situation that we're in right now with COVID-19 and the school closures, do we have a plan for how that work would be covered?
Right, so I will either go to Mr. Hill or Ms. Baptist, but I'm assuming that a long-term sub was secured. We do have some long-term subs filling in for folks who were either on maternity leave or other leaves of absences that are taking responsibility for that work with the support of their colleagues and administrators. Ms. Baptist, am I correct there?
You are absolutely correct. Just like any other fashion, we have our substitutes that are available that are indeed working remotely. They have been given the technology assistance to continue the education efforts throughout the standard process. So we have secured subs. Actually, we have a significant list of subs at the current time that are available to fill intermittent absences.
Board members, any other questions? No, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, if I could get a verbal aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Now we need a motion for the approval of the award of bids.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
second by Mr. Tyler. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, this evening there are 8 items on this month's award of bids. I'll read through those, give you a highlight of them, and then we can go through any questions that you might have. So the first is an award for the roof replacement for Cranberry Station Elementary School. The award amount includes the base bid and acceptance alternate number 1 to provide standing seam metal roofing. And this is part of your CIP and within the CIP budget, I'll note. The second one is an award for an electrical transformer at the Career and Technology Center, as Mr. Marks, I think, alluded to earlier. This relates to the construction report, and we need to purchase a few items to complete and a few others to be in advance for the site work starting this summer, and that money is also in the CIP budget. Third is the replacement of entrance doors at Oklahoma Road Middle. This is a security project as part of access control. The funding source is from a MABE Risk Control Fund. Fourth is refurbishment of the gym floors at Sykesville Middle and Westminster High School. These projects are being funded from our allocations of the State Aging Schools Program. These are the kinds of summer projects we do to prepare schools, for the coming year. So those are fairly typical. Fifth is a purchasing list of various items to be purchased by plant operations for schools as needed for next year. Sixth is repair of 2 cooling towers at Winters Mill High School. The funding will come from the local CIP infrastructure renewal project. 7th is installation of security laminate at 6 additional schools. And while we don't have a list of schools for security purchases, the next award will complete all but a couple of the remaining schools. And that, again, that funding is coming from the annual MABE grant as well. And finally, 8th is a purchasing list of various office supplies for the next school year. So I'll stop there, see what questions you have, and we'll have staff address those.
Okay, why don't we take them real quickly one at a time. Board members, any questions or comments on number 1, the roof replacement for Cranberry? No? I will just note that the bid award recommendation is well within our CIP amount, so I think that's good news there. Okay, I guess we'll move on to number 2, the electrical transformer at Curran Tuck. Board members, any questions or comments on that? No? Number 3 is the replacement of entrance doors at Oklahoma Road. Dr. Locker, do we know what was causing the need for these replacement doors? Is this a security issue, or is it just a normal wear and tear kind of issue?
John, you want to go ahead and address that?
It is. We view it as a security project, and it just has to do with having the right type of doors, the right material doors to work well with our access control, visitor management access control system, so that the doors can be electronically or magnetically locked. They have a kind of a vestibule there, and it's a project that Mr. Williams and Mr. Prokop's folks have been working on with the school administration for some time. So we'll just resolve some concerns about controlling the entrance and the vestibule that we weren't able to do in a different way.
Gym floors. Any questions on that one, board members? I thought it was very interesting that the bids seem to be very similar. So Westminster High School said that this was Miller Flooring Company had a bid of $29,400, and it was very similar for. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I was looking at the grid in the wrong direction. Okay, I was going to make a comment about how the bids were the same for a high school floor versus a middle school floor, which didn't make sense to me, but I was reading it the wrong way. Sorry. Board members, any other questions on the gym floors? No? The plant operations equipment. So we do have the pick list in the back for reference if anyone had questions. Number 6, the 2 cooling towers at Winters Mill. I was curious as to why we thought only one company submitted a bid for that, even though there were 18 that we solicited.
I'll have to ask Mr. Prokop if he could weigh in on that, if he has thoughts.
Well, I could weigh in, but unfortunately, it's one of those. These are just business decisions that contractors make. If they might come in and take a look, realize that it's either not in their wheelhouse or perhaps they're busy. It's difficult to say what the business community is thinking with these sorts of bids.
But the one bid that we did get has been in line with other quotes, and I assume that means other cooling tower quotes.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so we don't think that even though we only got one bid, it's still a reasonable bid compared to others that we've seen. Okay.
Yes, we're able to look at past projects, other work that we've done, and we're able to pretty well understand what the equipment is that's going in, how many hours it's going to take to put it in, and then go from there and make a good decision. If we thought it was outside those parameters, we would have rejected the bid and tried another direction.
Okay. Board members, any questions on number 7, the installation of the security laminates? And Dr. Lockard, you had said that that was for 6 schools?
Yes,
Let's recommend 6 additional schools, yes.
Okay, and we would we'd be left with a few more that we still haven't gotten to after that point?
Yes.
I believe too, President Savigny.
Correct. And we do have a plan for those. It's just not included in this bid. So we do have a plan for those 2 remaining schools.
Okay, so but those will be coming in future months?
They'll be, yes, they'll be addressed in future months. Exactly how we're going to go about it, whether it would come before the board or not, is a different question. Simply because it may be a change order type of a situation. This is a product that we can price per square foot very easily, and it may make more sense to just do a change order and do the last 2 schools.
Okay. So that wouldn't have to go through a typical bid award process?
That's correct.
Okay. And the last one for office supplies. Board members? I just did have a quick question as to how that compares to prior years. So we're estimating that the W.B. Mason contract would be about $250,000 all in for the year. Is that, I seem to recall that being a lower amount than it had been in prior years. Is that accurate?
I'll see if Mr. Hartlove has information on that.
Usually Ms. Codner's available, but I don't think she's on the call tonight.
Yeah, Ms. Codner, I could text her. She's been watching, but we kind of tried to keep our number of participants down. She would know the answers to that question. I do not know the answer to that question. I believe from reviewing and from memory that we're at least in the same ballpark, but I can verify that with her, and we could follow up with you after the meeting.
Okay, I think that's close enough for me to understand. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a significant increase from prior years.
I don't believe it is, no.
Okay. Board members, any other questions on any of the 8 awarded bid items? Since there weren't many significant questions or comments, I believe we can just take all 8 of these together. With that, I will call for the vote in favor of the award of bids in their entirety. If I could get a verbal aye, please.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. And now moving on to the last item under the action items, I need a motion for the approval of the transfer of the school bus contracts.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, from time to time, we bring you approval of contract changes among our bus contractors. Tonight we have 2 transfers of contracts. Both are among existing CCPS contractors. I know Mr. Hardesty is somewhere on this call, I believe, and he could answer any questions you might have about the specifics of that.
Board members, any questions? And I know that we see these periodically over time. We do see some of these school bus transfer contracts. Do we think that we'll have any issues with the current shutdown? I mean, does that throw any wrenches into this at all, or it's not a problem?
President Savigny, I don't believe it's a problem. I'll ask Mr. Hardesty to answer and take a point of liberty, if I might, to share that in the dark times in which we face. Mr. Hardesty also has some very exciting family news, and at a board meeting soon, you might be calling him Papa Hardesty or Grandpa Hardesty.
Congratulations.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Lockhart. Yes, I do have very exciting news. My daughter, Jennifer, is expecting identical twins, twin girls, due in probably late September.
Congratulations.
So,
Congratulations.
looking forward to being a grandpa, granddad, or whatever they call me.
Awesome.
There would not be any problem with these transfers related to the closing of schools currently. These were scheduled to go into effect for next school year, even though one has an effective date tomorrow, I believe. But so if school were to continue, the transfer would have been effective tomorrow, but there won't be any implication with these taking place July 1.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. If I could get a verbal aye for the approval of the school bus contracts.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. So that concludes the action items. And we can now move on to, we still have no public participation for Section 6. And so on to unfinished business or new business. Board members, do you have any other questions or comments or items that you'd like to bring up at this time before we read the upcoming meetings notice?
I'd like to say just a quick brief word. Again, through all these times, and somebody mentioned that we do have staff in our system who have kids in other systems and vice versa. And I just think Carroll County's done a great job, like they always do. And it's nice to hear that from other counties, and I have. And then I'll say a few names of other entities, but this county amazes me in its level of cooperation between the commissioners, the health department, the Chamber of Commerce, the sheriff, the state's attorney, and the community college, and I'm sure I skipped the libraries and probably somebody else. But when you see a crisis like this and you see people step up and some of the things they're doing, to me it's amazing, and I'm very glad I live here in Carroll County and hope I can continue to. It's just amazing.
Well said, Mr. Fowler.
I absolutely agree.
I'm proud to be a Carroll Countyan, and everyone be safe.
All right, board members, then I will read the notices for the upcoming meetings. So at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, May 6th, 2020, we have the FY21 budget work session, likely to be held virtually, but we will update as necessary. Also at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2020, we have the joint meeting with the Board of County Commissioners, also likely to be held virtually, but we will update as necessary. And at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, May 13th, 2020, we have our next board meeting, also likely to be held virtually, but we will update as necessary. Dr. Lockhart, do you have any other comments or things that you would like to address before we call for adjournment?
I do not. I wish everyone to be safe and well.
Dr. Lockhart, might I ask, can you share anything about an upcoming meeting that's going to be held this Thursday? Is that public at this point?
Yes. Yes. You're referring to, and that's been advertised. We pushed it out. The county's pushed it out. I think it was in the newspaper. Carroll community leaders will address COVID-19 questions in a virtual town hall. That'll be tomorrow, Thursday, April 9th at 6:30. Commissioner Wance is inviting residents to join him as he hosts the virtual town hall. Along with myself will be Carroll County Health Officer Ed Singer, Carroll Hospital LifeBridge Vice President Leslie Simmons, Carroll County Sheriff Jim DeWeese, and participants on that town hall will provide updates, answer questions, and there's information on how to participate in the virtual town hall or how to watch the virtual town hall. Again, we push that out. I'm sure Commissioner Frazier can tell you that information is listed on their website as well. So that's tomorrow evening at 6:30.
Okay, thanks for sharing it, Ken.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that information is on our website. Also, the other commissioners will be available as well for questions. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one other thing before you close tonight. We're going over the budget deliberations, as I'm sure all of you watching us every single day about that. But anyway, we're going over our budget deliberations. And we're actually starting from $10 million less than what we had anticipated because of the COVID-19 crisis. So that's going to have a tremendous impact on what happens. Just putting it out there right now, I don't know exactly how it's going to come out, but we're starting about $10 million less, and that might be optimistic. So we'll have to wait and see. I just want to prepare you for what may or may not be coming. I'm not sure.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Frazier. I think we've all been watching very closely and understand the situation, and I'm sure that will be the subject of much of the discussion in the joint commissioner meeting that we're having on May 12th. So thank you for that update. Okay, board members, any other questions or comments? And if not, I will wish everyone well. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and say once again, we do miss our students, and just thank everyone for the tremendous effort that's been going on across the entire county. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by
I'll
Ms.
second
Herbert,
that.
seconded by Dr. Dorsey. All those in favor with a verbal aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you again.
Thank you.